Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first virtual event of the year. We are here today to talk about the Education Program Toolkit, the first of a series of Wikimedia program guides. This was a joint effort from the Learning and Evaluation team together with the Wikipedia Education Program and the Education Collab. Um, and this was a toolkit created via gathering the knowledge that is already in the community about the Wikipedia education program.
Sorry, there's a bit of an echo.
Okay.
See if that kills it.
Sorry about that.
Is that better? Awesome.
This was, as I was saying, this guide was created gathering the knowledge that is already in the community about this very special program that Wikimedia, the Wikimedia movement has. Without further ado, I want to introduce the people in this room. So here with me today are Jamie Anstey, Program Evaluation Specialist, Ty, Wikipedia Education Program Leader, Anna Kova, also Wikipedia Education Program Leader, Edward Galvez, Learning and Evaluation Analyst, and myself, Community Liaison for Program Evaluation and Design. Casey Harrell will be introducing the toolkit, and we also have a few community members. Casey, do you want to introduce them?
Yes, joining the call today, we have Vojta joining us from the Czech Republic. He's a program leader there and also a board member, I believe. He's a member of the Education Collaborative, as is Shani, who's joining us from Israel today. They're both going to talk about some of the lessons that they've learned and shared that are contained in the toolkit. And then hopefully we will get Reem from Wikimedia Egypt to join as well. But we'll see how that goes. Anyway, did you have anything else to add, Maria, before we get started?
No, that's all from my side. So if you think that's okay, I'm going to share my screen to go to the slides.
Great. So, introducing the Education Toolkit. As many of you may know or may not know, we've been working on this for the past couple of months with the Program and Evaluation team, with the Education team at WMF, and with the Education Collaborative, who are program leaders around the world who have run a variety of different education programs. This started with some interviews with the Collab back in November, where I asked them about problems they face, solutions that they use, and lessons that they've learned over the years. The idea with creating the toolkit, I guess we'll go on to the agenda page, the next slide. In this Hangout, we're going to go through a couple of things. We're going to talk about what the Education Toolkit is, how to use learning patterns, which make up our key element for the toolkit. Then we're going to have a couple of conversations with the Collab members that are joining us. And then we're going to ask for some of your feedback and give you all a call to action for what you can do to help us improve this toolkit. But first I wanted to start with a story that I really, really enjoyed. In the process of interviewing all the different Collab members, I started to hear a lot of things that were really similar. They're running all kinds of diverse programs all over the world, and with students of various ages at private schools and summer camps and clubs, all sorts of different kinds of projects. But in the process of doing these interviews, I found that there were there were a lot of things that they had in common despite all of those differences. And one of them is that program leaders were finding that educators had didn't have great feelings about Wikipedia and Wikimedia. They were angry that students had been using it to copy and paste, or they didn't like that students were citing Wikipedia in papers, or they just thought that the information online wasn't good and wasn't of enough quality for them to participate in the project. So I heard from a couple of different people ways they worked around that, and I want to share my favorite one. So Vera from Wikimedia Ukraine told me this. She said, "I like to use this joke. There was once a man who didn't like the Eiffel Tower at all. He was scared of it. But he spent most of his free time in the cafe in the Eiffel Tower because that was the only place in the city where he didn't have to see it." The same thing goes with teachers whose students use Wikipedia to prepare for lectures and cite in papers. So I tell professors, if you don't want students to use Wikipedia, then make them write Wikipedia. And this has worked. That's just one of the examples of what I heard from program leaders, but they offered really great advice and ideas about how to work around problematic situations or talk to someone who might not have otherwise been interested. And we've hoped to capture those kinds of experiences in this toolkit and in learning patterns because they weren't as easy to find in the outreach portal, or they didn't always show up in blogs and reports and things on the mailing lists. Things like that feel like a funny story or an interesting event and not something that you would report officially. So hopefully this project will sort of bring more of that interesting knowledge to a place where we can all use it. So should we go on to the next slide? What is a toolkit? This is something that I asked myself quite a bit as I got started in this project. What do you really mean by a toolkit? And various people tried to explain what that is and what that does. So I totally understand if even my explanation doesn't make sense since I've been in it for so long. But the idea around the toolkit is to collect strategies, tech tools, advice, and resources for planning a program in a central location. We know that Wikimedians and educators have been teaching students to use Wikipedia in classrooms, clubs, camps for like 10 years now, and a lot of them have discovered success strategies and mistakes that people should avoid when starting an education program. Many of those strategies and lessons do get shared in grant reports, like I said, and in blog posts, but a lot don't get documented. On the other hand, we have a lot of resources available in the education outreach page where Anna and Ty have worked so hard to get trainings and materials and brochures and links to grant programs in a place where people can find it. So the toolkit idea is to bring all of those together to a central space. And we really hope that by doing that, people can see it as an editable thing, just like a wiki. They can add their information to it. They can point out something's missing that they would really like to know. And they can link through to learning patterns where they can propose their own solutions to problems that have come up, or they can ask questions that they haven't been able to find an answer to. So it's trying to centralize communication and centralize all of the resources that we do have in one place. And the reason for doing that is to help people who may want to start an education program get all of the information they need to get going without having to start from zero. They don't need to create their own teaching resources. A lot already exist. They don't need to make really common mistakes about how to talk to educators or how to do outreach. They can read from other people's experiences to find out what kind of program model will actually work where they live. So the idea is to help people be more successful and maximize their time, both as volunteers and as employees running education programs at different chapters. So as Maria said, this is the first of several toolkits that we're going to be working on in the next couple of months. Upcoming ones include running online writing contests and planning photo events. So it'll be really great to get your feedback after this session in the next couple of weeks about what works and doesn't about this toolkit. So if we go on to the next slide, I can talk a little more about how to use the education toolkit. Now, I'm just going to give a brief overview here, and then we will click through and go see it in the wild, if you will. It just went live yesterday. So the toolkit is organized into 4 main sections: plan, run, evaluate, and connect. And in each section there are pages to address various elements of that are necessary to plan, run, and evaluate your program. So in the process of making this, we came to realize that education programs around the world are very, very different, both in terms of the kind of people that program leaders and educators work with and the kind of constraints they face in terms of, what kind of schools can they work with? How much internet access do people have realistically? Things like that. So the toolkit contains a lot of information that we hope will be useful to program leaders and that we hope will be useful to people at all stages of program planning, and also useful to educators who may come with the idea that they want to do a program but don't know much about Wikimedia and the projects. So within each section, users can choose the links and learning patterns that they think they need to plan or expand a program. There is a lot there, but no one needs to use all of it. We hope to make it easier to curate some sets of information that different kinds of users need in the future. So please share ideas if you have them for how we can do that. Ideally, we don't want to overwhelm people with all of the information that is out there, and instead help people identify exactly what it is they might need. So on each page, we have tried to make it clear what the best practices are and what the most important links are that really all users need to pay attention to. So what do you say we go over to the toolkit and have a look? Can you take us there, Maria? I put the link in the comments section. Here it is now. Okay, so on this front page, if you will scroll down a little bit, this section, Success Factors, was something that I really hope that people will pay attention to, and we hope to add some links to it later so you can get to those sections. Over the course of the interviews that I conducted with the program leaders in the Education Collaborative, a couple of themes really stood out for how they ran successful programs. And I hope that we can pay attention to this and share this information with people as education programs grow. And namely, that's start small and grow smart. Start with a pilot project, find out what doesn't work before you invest a lot of resources into it. And growing smart means thinking about the tools and structures that you need in order to make your program grow in a way that it's still meaningful for students, or that quality content is still created. The second one is work with the community. I heard that from every single person that I talked to. And I think as Wikimedians that feels like a rather obvious statement, but because we hope that this is also accessible to educators, I've spent a lot of time writing about what community is and why it matters. And I would love to get feedback on whether I've really done that in the best way or not. So the next one is teach to student ability. I think we've seen in the literature that we have on the outreach portal, so much of that is about writing new articles on Wikipedia. But what program leaders are telling me is you can really adjust assignments to all sorts of different student ability levels. And if a student can't do something very well, say, translate a full article, then maybe change their assignment, make it a little bit easier. Help them be successful so that they can begin to grow skills and add on to what they can do. Another really key thing that I don't think we had realized as much was focus on motivation. So motivators for students and motivators for educators. There are a lot of different ways that you can motivate people to do this. And the way people are motivated and why they want to contribute to projects changes so much based on whether they're getting a grade for it or if they're doing it as a club or for fun. So we've included some work around how to make sure you're motivating your participants in the right way. The next section is, or the next success factor is to use tech tools to make work easier. we do have some tools out there, and the more we can get people to understand how they can maximize their time as volunteers using those tools, I think the better. And also, some of those tools are really attractive to teachers who, in the past may not have been able to monitor student work as closely as they are using things like the education extension, or even just setting up watch lists so they can see who's editing and when. And finally, a success factor is setting goals and tracking progress. We found that groups who set goals for what they want to do in the year and then keep an eye on where they are in the process of doing that end up getting a better idea of what they can do and what they can do well. And that gives them a space to understand what they need to change to be more successful in the future. And also, some co-ed members told me that sharing goals with students was a major motivator, and that made it easier to get students and educators excited to contribute quality content. So that's just the front page. Maria, do you want to go through some of these sections here? Maria created this design, and she had a lot of input from our team and from Anna Koval, who really kept in mind things like bandwidth and making sure it's viewable and mobile and things like that. So I think Maria might be able to tell us a little bit more about how to move through sections and navigate.
Okay, so the idea of this toolkit is that it has steps, but we believe that program leaders have different levels of expertise, so everyone should feel free to navigate this in any way that they feel makes sense to them. So we give this an order, but we want it to be as intuitive as it can be. So each step has different sections, as you can see here. Plan is probably it is actually the longest step that we have so far. And then you have run is a bit shorter. Here you will find how to ask for support and have also some teaching and assignments ideas. And
can we take them into one of the pages so they can see?
Yeah. So, for instance, when you're in Plan, the first page you will find is Plan a Pilot. So, when you get into one of these views, you see a little bit of a description, a quote, and it points to a learning pattern. And on the side, you see what else is on that same section. And you can navigate this with the sidebar, and it shows you the progress right here on the top. So each page may have 1 or 10 different learning patterns they link to. So once you go into one of these links, we see this view that we already are familiar with, I hope, which is a learning pattern for education. And if you scroll back, you will see that it takes you back to the education toolkit. So it goes back to start, and you can jump to any section that you want. So once you get, for instance, to the end of the section, you can go to the next section or back to the main view. So this is how we thought this through. We tested it a bunch of times, and we came and went a lot with the design. We want it to be easy to understand. It doesn't have to be hard. So any feedback that you give us is very welcome and should obviously involve how easy it is for you to use it and how helpful it is. And we are also looking forward for people to expand it and to add their own learning, and maybe sometimes in a few sections we might have, I can't remember exactly which one it was, but there are a few sections that have a need of learning patterns. I think here we can find one. No. It's
There's a template for it.
Here, yeah. So for a few points that we wanted to, we identified as a potential learning experience, but we don't have a learning pattern yet. There's a call out there, that's a new template. It's called learning pattern needed. So if you have something to add in any of these points, just feel free to add that, and it will expand the toolkit in this sense.
So I can talk now about learning patterns. If you take us back to the slides.
Yes.
So, like Maria said, hopefully by now you know about learning patterns and what they are, but I'm going to go ahead and explain. So we have created these learning patterns to allow users to identify common problems and propose solutions that have worked in their context. They're constantly evolving and anyone can edit them. And each learning pattern uses a consistent template so that there's no difficulty in understanding like what section you're in or where you can find the information that you need. I'm trying to think of what else is there. I know that writing learning patterns for me felt very difficult at first. Trying to pose something in a problem solution statement when maybe it's not a problem, but it's this is a really good idea. This is a best practice. And if any of you have a learning pattern you want to write and run into problems with that, you're welcome to start it and ping me or tag another user to help you refine that statement and make it a little easier. More than anything, it's important to use terms that are searchable. The goal with the learning pattern library is to make a space where anyone can search for a question that they have or for keywords where they're running into trouble and see if there's a solution that might work for them. So on the next slide, we can talk about how to use a learning pattern. Like I said, you'll go to the main page, and I'm going to take you there in just a second just to demonstrate. And there's a box where you can search for your problem. And it's not necessarily asking a question as much as it is using a keyword, like people are deleting work, something like that, or internet connection. Try a few different search terms. People use all kinds of words. You may find something that works, you may not. So once you get into a learning pattern, you can look for solutions that might work where you live, and you can try those out. If you find something that does work for you, or you see something written that you know makes sense, there's a button that says endorse, and in the endorse section you can add a little comment of, yes, this worked for me, it was successful in this way, or yeah, this is very important to learn. If you come up with a problem that you don't see a solution to, or you have more questions that aren't answered in a learning pattern, use the discussion pages and write your question. Say, I'd like to know more about this, or has someone tried this in this context? We hope that by using the discussion pages and by tagging people who we think might know something about that problem or solution, that we can sort of get more people to have discussions there. So it can become, I don't want to call it a frequently asked questions kind of section, but I'm hoping that that's where we can centralize discussions about, how to solve a bug with the education extension, or how to get things printed that you need. If you don't see, or if you know the solution to something and you want to write a pattern about it, you can do that using a template. And we have a short tutorial on how to create a learning pattern that's linked here. And just in the interest of time, I encourage you all to check that out if you haven't already looked at something like that. Because I do want to make sure we have enough time to talk to our collab members. Am I missing anything in the learning patterns discussion, Maria? Or Jamie?
No, I think you mentioned everything. I think it's also very interesting to bring up that you can open a discussion on learning patterns, and yeah.
Yeah.
Are you guys going to share the presentation?
Yeah, we are. So everyone, I was putting that in the chat box. We will share the presentation afterwards via comments, so everyone can access the links and all the resources we have there.
All right, so if we can go on to the next slide then. I wanted to have some conversations with some of the people that I spoke to during the Education Collaborative meeting in November. I think everyone that I spoke to shared insights and stories and hacks and workarounds that I never would have imagined, even having read a lot of their blog posts and all kinds of other things. I found myself constantly intrigued and laughing and saying, oh my goodness, we have to make sure other people hear this. So one of the people who really inspired me is Shani Evanstein, who lives in Israel, and I believe she has been working with Wikimedia Israel for some time. Let me actually get to my notes here. Yeah, Shani has been involved with Wikimedia Israel for a number of years, and she's been involved in several different education collaborations. In 2013, she initiated WikiMed, which was a semester-long elective course for medical students that focused specifically on writing for Wikipedia. Shani, are you there now?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, so I was hoping you could tell us, one thing that really stood out to me was community was something you really focused on. You said the Hebrew community played a really big role in WikiMed. Can you tell us a little more about how you got community members involved in the program and why that was important to you?
Sure. I think it's important, first of all, not only in this specific project, but in actually every project that you want successful. I mean, the more people involved from the community, the better probably the project will be, or it has a better success rate, if you will. So I was very lucky to begin actually with GLAM. We did a lot of GLAM work before, or actually side by side to education collaborations of all sorts. So GLAM was another way of involving people, and we got to meet many of the community members who've never met before, and you know, personal contacts basically. And then when I was working on the syllabus of the course, I actually invited key members from the community to take part in the course itself, like having them come to a guest lecture in the course, etc. And some of them worked and helped online. Some came to workshops to be sort of tutors. So everybody helped in different ways. And yeah, I think it was critical because it was a mass of students and a mass of articles to work on in a very short time span. So you need all the help you can get, and it couldn't have been done without other people. I mean, it's not, especially as a volunteer, it's not something that you can do alone, I think.
Did you get any kind of feedback from the Wikimedians who volunteered in class or online, and from students in the class about, you know, what they got from that experience?
Sure. Naturally, you know, first of all, I had some kind of evaluation form at the end of the course. I literally forced the students to do it, giving them 2 points of the grade if they filled in the evaluation form, because it's very difficult to make Israeli students fill out evaluation. So I made it part of the course grade. And we got incredible feedback from students. Some of them, we actually asked them to not only evaluate the course, but evaluate each guest lecturer separately. So we got a really good sense of what worked and what didn't work, and we kind of merged it with what we actually saw in class, because it's very easy to see when a class works and the guest lecturer is a good one. You see it, you feel the vibe in class, and then when you cross it with the evaluations from students, you get a fuller or wider view. So that's what we did in that sense. And as far as the feedback from the community, well, everybody who participated loved it. I mean, it was a great experience for everyone, even if the session wasn't perfect. There was a sense of us trying a new thing and doing it together, and everybody pitching in and doing something. But the most amazing thing that happened, I think, was getting feedback from other Wikipedians in the community who didn't participate in the course directly, but saw the results and writing, like in the Village Pump, whoa, what a great project. And that's not something that happens every day in, in Israel. I mean, people don't tend to gush or to really, you know. So that was a good feedback from the community itself, from people who didn't know or weren't involved directly. So that was important for us as well.
That's really great to hear. Now, I've started some learning patterns about where to find or how to get Wikimedians involved who may not be already volunteering online or offline. And I will share some links to all of the education learning patterns later. But I know all of you have so much more experience on connecting with people on the different language Wikipedia projects and otherwise. So I would love it if people could contribute to that learning pattern. Tell me what parts I got wrong, add in things that don't work in their context. I think there's a lot of room where we can help people get creative about how they find volunteers and how they get the community involved.
I just think it's important to also note that in terms of connecting to people, sometimes it's just a matter of actually approaching them and asking them personally to come to something, inviting them, letting people know that there's something going on and not just do it on your own and then report about it. And not enough people do it. And when I do something, I try to write like everywhere. I'll use Facebook and I'll use the Village Pump and I'll use the mailing list, letting people know that something is happening and inviting them to join and write me personally if they want to come to tutor, and people actually want to come sometimes, and sometimes that's a really good way, a great way to get newcomers. I mean, not totally newcomers, but people who are kind of new to the community but have already had some experience come join and meet people from the community, and then you create a chain of people who you know personally, and who next time will be more likely or more inclined to join you. So just ask people, tell them something is happening.
That's really great, and I actually have a note to myself to include some of what you've said in that learning pattern. Go back to the recording and get that. So the other thing that really I animated Shani when we were speaking and got me excited and interested was when she was talking about the way they use Wikimetrics and the education extension. And I was hoping that you could tell us a little bit. You said that at the beginning you got some pushback from the community about using the extension, but in the end you found it was a critical tool for success. Can you tell us a little bit about how using the extension affected your program?
Where to even begin? When we started doing all kinds of, and again, it doesn't matter if it's GLAM or any kind of workshop, actually. Any time you want, you have a group of newcomers, users that you're working with, and oh, I love your hearts. Anytime that you have something that's that you're doing, which involves newcomers, you want first of all to have their usernames as a starting point, and then you want to be able to track them and see who's working on what. And when we started, before the extension even existed, we used to open like wiki pages and write everything down and make new users go to that page and write down their username. So we have, first of all, a list of usernames, and it was all very difficult to manage, and it was horrible, basically, but this is what we had. And then I saw the extension, and I immediately understood this is the only thing that we have to actually have a group of people in the same space in kind of an easier way than before. And well, it's not perfect. Everybody who's using it knows it has a lot of small glitches or things that are missing, and of course it can be better. It wasn't specifically meant for some of the uses that we are using it for, but still it's better than nothing. So especially when you have a group of a big number of new users, and my course had about 65 new users, it's getting difficult to track everybody using a regular wiki page and starting to monitor the users independently. So in that sense, then the education extension is really helpful. It's also allowed me to do peer evaluations by making the students, even in a very simple way, each student evaluates the draft of the student who comes after on the list. So that was a really cool way to make them also check each other. And then the fact that Wikimetrics, they did something that you can actually use the course ID to monitor the course, which makes it much easier. So yeah, that was a good thing as well. I think it could be easier. I mean, I think we have a lot to do still in that sense of making it easier and more approachable to educators and to people who want to work with it. But I think everybody's working on that as well. So in a few years, we will have something better, hopefully.
Yeah, I've started a learning pattern on using the education extension, and Ty has been helping add some information. I understand that there have been some bugs that are coming up now that hadn't been happening in the past. But I'm hoping that we can create some resources, maybe video resources, and I would love to hear from you all what the pain points are when you're trying to work with it and when you're trying to share it with educators. So like what resources can we create together to make that easier and include in the toolkit? Because I just heard from enough people that using these kind of tools made the work of evaluating work and following students and keeping track and measuring so much easier and manageable in the space of volunteer time. So thank you so much, Shani, for speaking with us, and I hope that we can continue to have conversations. I really do look forward to and value the feedback that you can give me on things I've included so far. So next I'm going to speak with Vojta, who works with Wikimedia Czech Republic. He's a member of the board at Wikimedia Czech Republic, and he's been involved with education programs for several years. Now, Wikimedia Czech Republic education program mainly works with university students. Am I right? I think it might be secondary. You will correct me in just a moment. So with students and with senior citizens. If you haven't seen them, he has written some really excellent blog posts about starting education programs that I recommend anyone who is thinking about starting a program or even in their first few years of starting a program to read. And that is linked in the toolkit, I believe, in the Plan a Pilot learning pattern. But if anyone wants it, I will help you find that. Anyway, welcome, Vojta. I was hoping we could talk about the way you use tools to keep the program lightweight. In our interviews, you mentioned that education program leaders at Wikimedia Czech Republic have made a point to keep their program lightweight so that it's easy for educators and for volunteers to get involved. What kind of tools and strategies do you use to achieve that lightweightness, if that's a word? We can't hear you. Can anyone hear?
No, we can't hear him either.
Oh no. I wish.
Do you have a chat box or?
Yeah, any ideas? Do you want to enter things into the chat box? I can share some of the notes that I have, but I really wouldn't want to speak for you. Okay, so I will go ahead and talk to Reem and then come back and try Vojta again. When my microphone doesn't work, I shut my computer down and then restart. That usually gets it. So anyway, if we can move on to the next slide, we can speak with Reem, who I believe has joined us. So Reem is a program leader with the Wikipedia Education Program in Egypt. And there are a couple of really remarkable things about the education program in Egypt that she told me about. One of them is that nearly 80% of the participants are women, and also that students don't contribute to Wikimedia projects as part of a formal course. Instead, it's a club or an informal group that happens after courses. And another really interesting thing is that Wikimedia Egypt has a rather high rate of student retention, so students who continue to edit after the program is over. And I don't have that number in front of me. She may be able to share, but my first question for her is, can you explain how it is you motivate students who aren't getting academic credit for their work?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Good. So yes, about the student motivation. Well, actually, we use several methods and ways to do this, but mainly we encourage them to participate through promising them to promising to give certificates of participation by the end of each edition. And they really like such certificates because they believe that this will help them in their future career and in applying for jobs and stuff like this. And also they like how they get publicly appreciated through celebrations. We hold such celebrations uh, at the end of every edition of the program also. And recently, well, actually, this has started this edition. I started to make. Can you hear me, guys? Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello? Okay, good. Thank you. Yes, recently I started to do something that I found out to be really beneficent and useful, which is to share the good things that might go for the society or benefit the society from participating in Wikipedia. Because I started to notice that students feel like they are doing something great for the society, and I thought that this is correct, and they need to see examples of this. They need to see that they are really doing something great for society. And I started to share stories about how some articles we create on Wikipedia uh, take part in dispelling some wrong beliefs or some wrong information. Uh, a recent example of this was a story about a man who supposedly committed suicide in a very strange way. And then when I researched this story, I found out that this is a fictional story. Although it was on Facebook, it was taken like it is a real story, and all of the Arabic community was just sharing this like crazy on Facebook. Then I started to I think that because I found out that we do not have an Arabic article uh, for this story on Wikipedia. We have only an English article. So I created the Arabic article, and then I told my students that such article got like one 122 hits in only 2 hours
Wow.
from creating it. Yes, which means that a lot of people were searching about the truth or the reality of this story, which means that what we do in Wikipedia really has a great effect on people. Students loved this and felt like they're doing something important for the first time in a long time. So I started to share more stories of this sort. This is what we do for motivation. Then another thing is to set goals. A lot of times we found that students do not really know what they are doing and why. So we start to tell them. So we have like a goal of making, for example, increasing the quality or quantity of articles on the Arabic Wikipedia. So if we set our goal and make it clear for all of the participants, this makes it very easy for them to concentrate and focus on this goal, which keeps them motivated. And then, yeah, we have the celebration, and we keep our ambassadors. This is something very important for keeping our participants motivated. Is that we keep our ambassadors something like a chase. So they keep asking our students how they're going and about the progress they are making with their articles, and they keep like motivating them with stories about knowledge and how knowledge is precious, and again with how what they are doing is very important for the society as themselves. We keep reminding them that they have to give back to the society, because each and every one of them has used Wikipedia at least once in his own life. So maybe this is the time to give back to society, and they really like this idea. They like to feel like they are helping their community.
And that's
So
something that
I think.
sorry.
No, it's okay. I finished.
Yeah, that was something that I heard from most of the collab members that I spoke to, that both students and teachers are motivated by the idea of being able to give back to society. And that's not, isn't it super surprising to Wikipedians who are motivated by the same thing. Thankfully, like Reem had mentioned earlier, that she was using tools just to show page views and things like that. Within one of the learning patterns and on some of the outreach pages, we have a list of different tools that are available to visualize page views, usage, new readers, things like that. So tools that you can use in classrooms just to get students excited and keep them interested in doing good work. And something I don't think we have time to talk about is just student retention. And again, that's not a goal that every program should have, but the Egypt program has been fairly successful in that. And I think I have included some of the information that Reem shared with me in Learning Patterns somewhere. And if not, we will start one. So do we have Wojta back yet? Any idea if he's returned?
I guess.
So no, he's not.
Is someone on chat with questions?
Dominic's there from the Czech Republic. Dominic. It seems that when he's not here, he says.
Okay.
Well, I can share a little bit about what I had discussed with Wojta that I want others to hear.
There's also an interesting conversation going on in the chat. Maybe we should bring that.
Yeah, sure.
What do you think, Casey?
I think that's a great idea. Yeah,
So,
Fernando wrote that. He said, I think one of the most important things to retain students is involve them as a community. Establish links between. Is someone else talking?
Oh, sorry, we have to mute ourselves.
Sorry. Yeah, so establish links between students and the community, and that the volume and quality of knowledge that they share becomes a value that identifies them and gives them value and recognition within that community. So I know that he is here, but we are running pretty close to the end of this Hangout, so I want to talk about what we can do and next steps to get involved and give us some feedback on work. So if you'll go to the next slide, Maria. So this may not be easy to answer right now, since you haven't, taken a really deep look at it yet. It only went online yesterday. But over the next couple of days, it would be great if people could have a look and think, does this toolkit resonate with your work? if you're a new program leader or someone who doesn't know very much, does this seem overwhelming? Is it too much information? Are there ways that we could filter things a little bit differently? And I've done my best to capture your experiences as program leaders and capture experiences of educators, students, and the community, but because I'm not really any of those, I'm sure that there are things that are missing. So notes on that to that end would be really appreciated. What can we do to make this feel more like your tool? And the second area is, are there major gaps that we should fill? Do you see things that are missing about, one of the questions that I asked a lot of the collab members was there something that you wish you had known before you got started? And if you see some of those things that you wish you had known before you got started or before you grew a program, certainly share those. Vojta has already contributed. I asked him to look over the page about growing your program, and he said, oh, there are 2 things you're missing here, and he went in and added bullet points there. And that's absolutely wonderful. We'll be keeping an eye on it, and there may be some editing and pruning. It's just like any other wiki page. So that is one piece of it. And then, did you have anything you wanted to add to that, Maria?
Okay, so no, just to remind everyone that this is a collaborative tool that we built with the community. So just try it. Yeah, our hope would be that everyone owns it and appreciates this tool. And so we want to see it grow. We would like to see it grow. We think it can help many programs expand their impact. So come back to us to make it better, include your learnings. We really believe that a lot of learning happens in action when implementing a program and executing it. So be aware and awake and try to capture that and share it with the rest of the movement. That is what this is for. And we also hope to make it available for translation soon. We're working on that. We just needed to launch a version of this. So, yeah. Edward.
And just a note about translation. It's usually best to get as many comments and changes, especially now that people know about it and that it's available. To get as much feedback now, so that when it becomes marked for translation, it's kind of already, it's been vetted a little bit and it's already ready to be translated, and people can put the work into translating it, which can take a lot of time for volunteers as well. So,
so currently they are marked with a category code not ready for translation. Obviously, we will work along with you all to get those into a point where we can say, yes, these are stable patterns. Let's go ahead and mark them for translation and get it in more languages out to more people. I want to say a special thank you to the Education Collaborative members who have been working with the education program leaders here at the Foundation, and our learning analyst, program design inquirer, Casey, for all of her efforts in interviewing and tracking all of these pieces of information. You all carry so much knowledge about the how-to and working together and mapping that and exchanging our successes and our challenges in those different strategies is certainly going to be the way that we can drive toward the impact that we all intend with these efforts that are great and far-reaching, hopefully. So thank you all.
So I see that Vojta is back. As you can see on the slide in front of you, we have links to the ways that you can give us feedback and involved. If everyone's okay with it, I would love to
Edward, can we
ask a couple of questions before the hangout is over. Is that okay with people? I see you all nod in approval. We'll do it. Can we go back to the slide for him? I believe it's number 8. Okay. So as I said, He's a member of the board at the Wikimedia Czech Republic. He's been involved in several education programs. And what had really struck me in our conversations is that they aim to keep their program lightweight, both for educators and for volunteers. And I want to know what kind of tools and strategies, or I hope you can share the kinds of tools and strategies they use to keep programs lightweight. You can't talk? Oh, that's too bad.
He still can't hear you.
Well, I can tell you what he told me, and he can nod his head furiously if I'm wrong. He had mentioned that the barrier to entry to being a program leader is really, really low. That it's just talking to people and asking them if they do want to work in classrooms. And the tools that they use to make it easy is use the education extension. That's one way that they don't have to ask teachers to contribute metrics or count the number of students or articles and any of that. They don't need to do that part. You know, volunteers can run those metrics themselves just using the education extension. And the other thing that they've done is create an education portal of their own, and that education portal has some interactive trainings that he said are really useful for students. And the trainings and information that are available there mean that a volunteer maybe only makes one visit to a classroom, and that's to teach some really important lessons. And we've said the important ones are making sure students understand copyright and showing them very clearly you know, what copyright means and how easy it is to detect. So in those two ways, it makes it easier and more lightweight. Oh, and the other thing that he said was very important is to try and make sure that educators have a really good experience and invite them to come back. Educators who are coming back for a second and third year really don't require as much training or hand-holding or preparation. They can be given some updates and some of that in-class work, so it becomes much more sustainable for volunteers to do that work. And then the other part, since we're running out of time, I'll just tell you, you can read the blog post that he wrote, and I'm sorry I didn't link it here. And it's talking about ways that they've done some outreach that I thought was really interesting. And I think a lot of those messages are also included in the learning pattern on outreach to educators. But it was focusing on one-on-one interactions, not sending mass emails, working with returning teachers. And another lesson I heard from almost every person that I spoke to in the collab was that that you need one successful classroom project to get a program to grow. That once it's worked for someone, you know, word spreads, people hear about it from others, and people want to get involved. And after that, you really don't have to seek out educators anymore. You know, they come to you. And those are the best kind of people to work with because, you know, they have their own intrinsic motivation. They need less convincing. So again, that's in the learning pattern on outreach to educators, and I hope that I've done you right. Vojta, is that okay? I guess with that, we have just gone to the end of the Hangout, and again, I want to say thank you to everyone who showed up on the Hangout today. Thank you to the collab for all of the time you spent speaking with me and how generous you have been to share your time today and share all of the knowledge you've created. And to the education team, I could not have done any of this work without you. You all have such deep and interesting knowledge about education programs around the world, and to be able to, you know, poke you and ask questions here and there. And finally, the learning and evaluation team and the members of the grant-making team at WMF have been so helpful in helping me understand Wikitext and learning markup and what looks good and what's terrible, and building some really excellent templates for us to work with. I think this is really exciting, and I hope that it is useful both to you all on the Hangout and to our community at large. With that, thank you so much, and I look forward to getting your feedback.
On the pages.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for taking part. This continues on the top pages.
See you on the Wiki.